Hello, welcome to this episode of Akrinos Access. I'm Eric Matei, joined in this episode by a very special, remarkable guest, Dr. Jen Stewart, as we're going to unpack this whole concept around planning a professional transition. Dr. Stewart, thank you so much for joining us here on Access.
Thank you for having me.
So I suppose maybe we should start the conversation around how this evolved and how you got to where you are and kind of prompting this conversation. So please share a little bit about your background and how we came to connecting on this topic.
Wow, how long do you have? No, I'm kidding. So I was in private practice for 14 years. I joined my private practice a year after graduation. So I joined in 2008, where I moved to Connecticut. And I was there until June of 2022. I just recently sold my practice and transitioned out of patient care after 15 years total of patient care. I graduated from NECO in 2007. So just 15 years after graduating, I walked out of the exam room for the last time, said goodbye to my slit lamp, hung up the phoropter, and am really excited to do lots of cool things that I was doing also in addition to seeing patients, but now I get to devote my time fully to speaking, writing, consulting, doing cool stuff like this, connecting, being parts of a lot of different groups, and just seeing where that takes me. And it's been a lot of fun, and it's been a wild ride, even just the last 3 months. So I can't wait to see what's in store next.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And it really is fascinating. If I think back to when you and I first connected a few years back, and, what started as a couple of comments on each other's social media posts has turned into some really great meetings that we've had. I know, just kind of talking about the state of independent eye care, independent optometry, and topics such as this, right? Making this professional transition and realizing that may be different things to different people, right? It's not just being like, wow, I'm totally going to leave what I'm doing now and devote my my whole life to other pursuits. But so I suppose on that note, perhaps let's start this conversation at the very beginning, and that is like, where does it start? So maybe share a little bit about when interests become passions, become hobbies, then become like kind of your next professional pursuit.
So I don't know when I decided I wanted to be a speaker. I think I went to a bunch of dinners and I thought, well, that could be cool. How hard is it to get up in front of a group of people and talk? And so I got my first role as an industry speaker just 10 years ago. My son will be 10 in January, and I started 6 weeks after he was born. Really great time to start a new venture, such as traveling and speaking. Why don't you do that when you have a newborn? But and I was terrible. I think I was terrible. I thought it would be easy, and it was definitely more challenging than I thought to get up there and talk to my peers and be in front of a group. And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Did I make a huge mistake? And somehow I just plugged along. And now 10 years later, there's nowhere I'd rather be than in front of a group on a stage. I love virtual presenting. That has been a learning curve too, but it really is nice. My family just got home. I can hear them downstairs. So it's nice to kind of have the flexibility to do both. But I really, over the last 2 years, I did some speaking, and I've always been a writer. I've written for pretty much every publication throughout kind of the last 15 years, but COVID was good to me in that it really launched my speaking and consulting, because I could say yes to everything. Like, you want me to present Wednesday night? Sure. During COVID, do you want me to present at 1:00 on a Thursday? I'm stuck in my house, so sure. So I really took the opportunity to say yes to everything and to really push myself and do some things that were different. And really found that I enjoyed it, and really, as things started to open up, or are starting to open up now, being back in person at meetings. Like, we met for the first time at Vision Expo. I met some of my awesome friends who are on here too, in person at Vision Expo. So it's just really fun to connect and to feel that energy. But it's been fun to watch it evolve, and to, a month ago, I would have not expected to be doing the things I'm doing now. So in a month or 2 months or 6 months, I just can't wait to see what's next.
Absolutely. Hey, who knows? Who knows? Okay. So,
Right.
let's still though. So now let's dig a little deeper, right? Because what you just, and that was a great kind of, that wasn't even a 30,000 foot view. That was like a 60,000 foot view that you gave us, right? Because the fact is this, for you in planning and making this professional transition happen, it did not happen overnight, right? I mean, it went from 10 years ago when you get your first consulting speaking gig, to where you are now. A lot has transpired along the way. So take us through a little bit. First, answer this question. Did you know when you did that very first conversation that you were on a trajectory to exiting practice ownership and kind of taking, okay. So that being said, the first question is this: when did it go from a casual interest, with young children and a family, a casual interest I can devote, say one night a month to doing it? When did it go from that to kind of like, I may want to start to be more engaged in this? When was that turning point?
I'd say during COVID. I think being home, I think a lot of people really have rethought their life during COVID. And I feel like I was one of them. And I feel like a lot of us are in that stage. I'm on a side note, which we'll talk to, I love private practice and independent optometry, and nothing makes me happier than to see so many other people making a choice like I did. We're making different choices, but I'm following kind of what I felt was right for me at the moment and is right for my life. And I'm so excited to see people doing that, starting businesses. I mean, you're super involved with people buying practices, starting cold, taking ownership. And I'm excited to see them do that, because I wouldn't have been able to do all this if I didn't own a private practice and have the ability to step away and to have that practice and be able now to do something else. But I think it was during COVID. I have two young boys who are 7 and 9, and I love being home with them. And I felt like, with seeing patients a lot and then adding on a speaking career, which would make me travel, that combined didn't really mesh with the new life that I wanted. And I really wanted to be around, take my kids to swim practice, be able, like, tomorrow's our walkathon at 2:00. Sure, I'll be there. And to be there for that. So I really started thinking during COVID. So yes, it was not, I woke up in May and decided in June that I was done. So that would be really bad. So no, unfortunately, that's the biggest question I get from people is, when did you start thinking about what you wanted to do? And I would say yes, during COVID, but I've always lived by kind of thinking about 1, 5, and 10-year plans. So what do I want in 1 year? What do I want in 5 years? And what do I want in 10 years? So while 10 years ago, I wouldn't have imagined this, I started thinking about it 2 years ago. So it fell in that time frame. And it, I've been thankful for what I've been able to build, but it was not an overnight, wake up in the morning, decide to sell my practice and see how it goes.
Sure.
Don't do that.
Yeah. So was this a pursuit or an escape? And I ask that because oftentimes, and I know you and I, Jen, I mean, we've connected on other things other than just like professional, also where we are in our lives with families and all these things. And with a lot of major life changes at any phase of life, it's always a matter of, okay, am I escaping something or am I pursuing something? So why don't you share a little bit regarding your journey and also just that, is this about escaping something or about pursuing something more or something bigger?
Definitely pursuing, I love patient care. I loved my practice. I just felt like there was something else I was meant to do. And I love teaching, and I love connecting, and I love communicating. I love networking. I just love being around other people. And my favorite thing is being able to teach somebody something, however that is. Like, I'm a professor now. I'm an adjunct
That's right.
assistant
Yes.
professor at NECO. So I'm teaching students. I have a sports vision class. So I love teaching students, and I love being hopefully a role model and a mentor to them. And then I love being able to connect with other ODs. And I will say it's, a couple people a week that I feel like I connect with through social media, or whatever it is, email, that are kind of at a crossroads of, I don't know what I want to do next. And it's really fun. And I love that. I'm honored that people come to me and say, how did you do this? Or what made you think that? Or yes, or were you tired of seeing patients? Did you dislike optometric practice? And my huge answer is no. Oh my gosh, no. I just felt at this time there was something more I needed to do. And thankfully private practice gave me that flexibility. And I love private practice. I love optometry. And the great thing about optometry is there's so much other things we can do in addition to or outside of clinical care.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm really glad you shared that. It's all about the pursuit, because as you know, I mean, we connect with a lot of young optometrists. I mean, everything from like fourth years to doctors who have been practicing for 10 or 15 years, what have you. And that's always a critical question. It needs to be something we all is to be sure that we're doing it for the right reasons. And it's all about pursuit. So when you discover that, then there's something else really cool that I've picked up on that you've shared. Kind of when you had that epiphany during COVID, you had the epiphany, and then you put yourself out there. And I think that's really fascinating, right? Like you didn't stand on the sidelines. I mean, sure, there was probably some planning and probably conversation between you and your husband and perhaps your mentors and but when it ultimately came down to it, you put yourself out there. So share a little bit about what that was like when it's like, you know what? We're going for it.
Hire me.
Hire me. Yeah, let's do it. So share a little about that, and like making that commitment to, I'm just going to go for it. It's time to spread the wings.
I think that's really my life anyway. I don't ever, I mean, and you know me well enough, and people on here know me well enough. I don't do anything halfway. There's no half commitment. That's just not my style. So, I know you and I will have another conversation about sports vision, but when I started a sports vision practice in 2015, and same thing, we didn't do it halfway. My husband left his job in the financial industry. My younger son was a month old, and we opened a complete new location, cold start, totally brand new, standalone sports vision clinic, which there were very few of, if any, at the time. So I don't feel like I'm a half in kind of person. So when I decided this is what I was going to do, I just got out there. And I love people. I'm an extrovert. I am your true extrovert who is energized by being around people. So it's not work. It doesn't feel like I'm doing something other than just being myself. And I think social media, for all of the downside that there is, and there is a lot, I think it's been great to connect, a lot of I look at the people who are on here, and I think all of us have connected on social media, and in a roundabout way, that's that's how I'm here. You and I connected, and it's just been amazing to see how all of these connections turn into opportunities. And that's one of my favorite things to talk about students is you never know where those opportunities are going to come from and who you're going to meet. And I told you my favorite thing to do is connect people. So if I can make a connection between people because I see an opportunity, that's my favorite thing. And I feel that comes back to you tenfold. The opportunities that I see to help other people succeed, I do that because I love it. But I also feel like that's something that also helps down the line. But I think just being out there and being excited, and just, I love optometry. I love meeting people. I love meetings. I love sharing. I love talking, obviously. But when I talk to students, my biggest piece of advice is, and I know you have a lot of students and young ODs, is I always tell them, like, go sit at a table where you know no one, take the empty chair, just sit down, put your phone away, and start talking, and just start striking up a conversation with somebody. It's not scary. Go talk to a vendor. Just go talk to somebody, and you never know where that conversation is going to go. And I see Perry on here talking about connections at events. I went to Vision Expo East this year. It was the first time I've gone and not taken a class. I went for that sole reason that Perry says, of just connecting. And I went with no purpose other than walking around the exhibit hall to see who I could run into. And that's where the opportunities, I think, come from, are just making these unique, really honest and enduring connections, and just seeing where that goes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it starts with something that you pointed out, and that is authenticity, right?
Yeah.
Like really discovering what is authentically you, and bringing it out there. So that being said, though, it's not easy, right? So why don't you share a little bit, maybe some of the trials and tribulations along the way as you started to make this pivot?
Yeah, I think I will say, the harder things are just learning to do things differently. And I was thinking, I'm helping teach some people how to present virtually. And as I think about how to teach, I think about, I had to record myself presenting virtually like 3 or 4 years ago, and it was so bad. And I sat here crying, and I couldn't make my computer work. I didn't know where to look. I don't know how to record. And then I'd play it back, and I was just like, that is horrible. I made myself cry about how bad it was presenting virtually. And then, COVID happened, and I had to do it, and there's no other option. And I was like, all right, you're just going to stink and just get through it. Just don't write a script. Just look at the camera and talk, and pretend you're talking to somebody. And I got through it. I was like, wow, that really wasn't that bad. And I could do it in my pajamas. Like, I'm doing it in my house. What's terrible about it? Maybe I'll say yes to the next one. Because the first time I did it, I said, the next person that asked me, this is one and done. I'm not doing this. And then, just like anything else, I was like, that wasn't terrible. I'll give it another try. And now, like, I spend most of my time virtually presenting. So I think things like that, it just is something different. And I know we were talking earlier about, like, all the sports that I've tried, and it's just taking the first step of trying something, and just going in with an open mind, and just saying, I'm going to give it my best, and we'll see how it goes. And if I don't like it, I don't have to do it again, or I will continue to do it and figure out a way to get better and turn it into something. And that seems to be the way that I operate. So.
Absolutely. Love it. And by the way, again, what's the name of the sport?
Paddle, platform tennis.
Platform tennis. Okay. And unless you and one of our
Allie.
guests here, Allie, have colluded prior and been like, hey, we're going to totally pull the wool on Eric, because I'm still yet, no one else has said that they've actually heard of this sport.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've only played 3 times, so I'm not a pro, but it's things like that, like going into a sport that I am, super uncomfortable. I don't know any of the terminology. I didn't even know the real name of it. I had to look it up, what paddle meant. It's platform tennis, but kind of going, I'm just going to get out there and be terrible. And, I had a lesson, and I almost cried because my body was not doing what I wanted it to do. And I was like, you can do this. Like, you've done way harder things. You're fine. Just do it. And I finished, and I was like, okay, I will take another lesson, because that wasn't terrible, but I was not good, but I'm okay with that. And so I think it's just, I'm a type A former athlete. So I think I just keep pushing and just figuring out ways to do better, and then find another thing to do.
yeah, it's really interesting to bring that up. because you bring up a really important theme that I think should be recognized, and as we're on this topic, and that is, you just mentioned like this new sport you're picking up. You're like, it's cool. I want to play, and being being you, you're like,
Yeah.
I'm not just gonna play. I'm gonna play.
I'm gonna
Okay,
dump.
you're gonna dominate. Yeah, right. I'm not just gonna play. I'm gonna dominate. My kids are going to come to the Connecticut State Championship in late February, and Mama's going to be out there paddling some platforms or whatever it's called. But anyhow, but you bring up a really good point, and that was, you were trying something new, you had an interest, you went for it, but wow, I didn't quite take to it like I'm seeing other people take to it. So talk a little bit about giving yourself grace.
Yes.
And keeping things in perspective as you are. And whether it is an all-in pursuit, professional transition, I'm selling my practice and starting a new career, or whether it's a hobby or a side hustle or anything. So talk a little bit about those times where, and maybe if you ever had a trying time where you really kind of second guessed yourself, where you felt that imposter syndrome kind of creep, or do you dominate that as well?
I think we all have it, I mean, even I have
Absolutely.
imposter syndrome all the time. I think, sometimes like when I'm asked to come to a conference and present, I'm like, me? Really? Me? You sure? So I think that's always there. It's like this still, I can't believe somebody's paying me to do this. But, I think no matter what it is, I think that's the downside of social media and all of this. I had this conversation with a friend today. We were talking. I have a friend who has a really successful cold start. He's about 3 years in, and we were talking about things, how it looks on the outside, and he said I think a lot of people think when they look at a practice, man, it just looks easy. It looks easy. You took this nothing and turned it into something. It's so easy, and you just don't know what went into it on the inside. And he said, and I know, like, I have a small group of people. Actually, there's some people on here too that I talk to every day. I have a network, kind of my accountability group of friends, and we talk every day, even especially when I was practicing. But we kept it real with each other, and we all had very, very successful private practices, very established, very, very successful, but we all had challenges, and we would meet during COVID, we'd meet weekly on Zoom and talk about what the heck's going on. We don't know how to do this.
Oh my gosh.
Oh
You
my
remember
gosh.
that? That was
Yeah,
crazy.
it was terrible. Like, how are we going to
crazy.
open? What are we going to do?
Yeah.
But we continued that after COVID, and I have, a good handful of friends that I talk to every day, and we would say, like, I'm struggling with this in my practice. Are you struggling with that, or how are you managing that? So on the outside, it looks like you've got these practices that are super well run, super successful, but you can always do better. And I don't think you see that struggle in a lot of people, but it's there. And I think it's very humbling, but in a good way. It makes us human, and it humanizes everybody. And even in my practice, we were really good at a lot of things, but we could have been better at a lot of things too. And I always tried to remember, celebrate the victories, celebrate the things that we are killing. Like, we are really, really good at this. And there's these things that we could be better. And we all know that, but it's kind of balancing the two. You don't want to always just look at the things that you're doing well and ignore the rest, which is super easy to do. But you also don't want to live kind of in the negative all the time and, woe is me. So it was always a nice balance of, celebrating the things that we're winning, but what can we do better? And I'm not one to ever give up. So there was always a list of things that I could professionally do better. And I was honest with my staff. We would have staff meetings. I said, I know I'm not doing this well. I know that I want you to do this in the optical, but I'm not doing my job in the exam room. So I'm going to do better. And I'm going to make sure every patient, I'm going to say X, Y, and Z, because then I know I've set you up for success in the optical. And I'm trying, and I'm doing it probably 80% of the time, but that's not good enough. And I'm going to take ownership of that because I want to set you up for success. So if we're, one of our metrics was X, say it was second pair sales, I would look at myself and say, did I do the best job with that patient? Probably not. And So I think it was just, things like that, just being, not settling for, you know, not the best, but being honest and being open about, I could have done that better, or, oh, that presentation, oof, that was not my best. So even when I'm presenting, sometimes I'll be presenting to a group and I'll say something, I go, actually, you know what? Can I redo that? That did not come out well. That was really bad. I know maybe it's recorded, maybe it's not, but I just want to start over, take a breath, and re-explain it so that we all have a good understanding.
Are
So,
you being serious right now? Because I thought this has been awesome.
no, well, this is good. No,
Oh,
no,
I
no,
thought
no.
you were being serious. I thought you were saying, Eric,
I do that.
Eric,
No, like
we need to
sometimes I
start
stumble. This
over.
was okay. This wasn't my worst. But sometimes I'll be presenting to a group on contact lenses, and I'm going and I'm like, that is just terrible. Like, what are you saying? And I'll
Sure.
just stop it there and go, no, I need to redo that. So, I think just recognizing and being open to change and challenging yourself, but also being good to yourself and
Yeah.
supporting, the things that you recognize. It's okay to say that was really good, or I'm super proud of that, or I'm super proud of that I was asked to do that, and I was super proud of, an email I got from an attendee of a webinar who said that really clicked. It's okay to celebrate that too, and have that good balance.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah. There's a couple things you shared there. I mean, certainly authenticity, right? You also touched on what came to mind as you were talking about kind of giving yourself space and like balancing the day, break it down into the small things. But I think give yourself space for grace, you
Yes.
know, but also something else critical that you pointed out, and that is the daily milestones. Because with any pursuit, right? I mean, and you tie it back to being a practice owner for 15 years and all of these things, and you know that drive and that pursuit, and realizing that there are always going to be trials and tribulations, there are always going to be fires.
Yes.
Um, but man, celebrating the milestones. And as a leader, something else you mentioned also, as a leader and leading by example, and in so doing, being a part of the effort,
Yeah.
that can really start to change things. So I do want to dig a little deeper though into something else you mentioned, and that was what you said during COVID. You had or perhaps it predated COVID, but you have a group of peers,
Yeah.
fellow independent practice owners, that you guys had like a text thread. You guys would hang out, would have you talk about the importance of support systems, such as study groups like that.
Oh my gosh. I don't know how I'd be without, I'm so thankful for all the groups I'm in and all the people that I have to support me. I mean, I look at the list of people who are on here, and there's so much support out there, and you never have to go at it alone. And I can't do it all alone. And I have, like I said, I have a group of friends who, I'm like, I think I want to try this. Have you guys done this? Or what do you suggest? Or, oh my gosh, this was the worst day ever. I like, help me. Like, this was like
I'm
the worst.
out. I'm out.
Yeah, I'm done.
Here's the
I'm done.
keys.
Yeah. Or, wow, like, can I just like share that like my optical crushed it today? And we're super honest on numbers too. Like, we don't hold back. We're in different parts of the country. We share, every number, every metric. I can ask them, what did you do here? Or what was your daily, what'd you do today? What'd you do this month? What'd you do this year? So we celebrate those victories. We have healthy competition sometimes. But it's so nice to have people to bounce ideas off of. And I think optometry sometimes can be a lonely solo field. We're surrounded by people all day. So it's not lonely in that we're by ourselves, but a lot of us practice as solo doctors or in a group practice, but we either don't practice with the other person, or we're so busy, we like our ships passing in the night. So I think having a network of people who are like for me, it was practices in similar size, both in, physical and dollar amount, but having people to talk to and to ask questions. I mean, whether it's your state, like in my state, I'm an IDOC member. So, my IDOC group is super close, but, my couple group of friends that we talk about, everything. And I don't know, like COVID, especially, I'd ask, kind of silly question, like literally, like, how are you going to like clean the doorknob? I don't even know. I don't even know the answer to that. Like, how are we going to do this? And, more of us can come up with the answer better than one of us alone. So optometry, I feel like, can sometimes feel like you're living in a bubble and you're just putting your head down and grinding. And I don't have time to go to a meeting because I'm so busy. We're all so busy, busy, busy. But I think kind of taking a breath, stepping back and joining some kind of group just to talk and to be part of it. I like branching outside of optometry too. I have a fellow OWA member here. I'm a member of the Optical Women's Association. Actually, there's at least two that I can see right now, but that's been unbelievable to me because it's women in the optical industry, not just optometry, which is so refreshing and so different. And I get to hear perspectives outside of just optometry. And I get to hear what's going on in all these companies and meet people who are so passionate about helping optometrists succeed. And we don't see that. We don't feel that. We don't see that, this drive of all of these companies that exist to support us. So for me, kind of stepping back and not just talking about managed care and staffing and, all the things that optometrists tend to talk about, but being able to hear what's going on in the optical industry and to hear why people are doing things like to support optometry and to help us get better. So, groups like that have been instrumental for me in kind of taking a deep breath and going, okay, leave the exam room for a minute, take a breath and learn from other people who are not optometrists. And it's so enlightening and it's inspiring and it's so refreshing. So everyone keep it up. There's a couple of you on here too. So.
Yeah. I know. Perry just dropped in the chat. So true about having the network outside of eye care. And I was going to comment as well. Perry, I'm right there with you. As Jim was sharing that, I'm thinking, the fact is that it's not just optometry. I think it's anyone who's in any entrepreneurship position or even part of a kind of a small startup organization. If they're really a key player and contributor and are in it for the long term. You can feel like you're on an island of sorts. And I think it's really powerful what you said. And again, to put it in the context of planning a professional transition, it's important to realize, there's a lot of folks out there that are either in the same position as you, thus you guys can go through that journey together. That there's such a remarkable support system there, but then also, and something that you mentioned, finding those that have unique experience or perspective or an expertise that you lack, and find ways to grow and develop through those relationships. And again, building that support system, all going to the professional transition, because I'm glancing at the time, and I really want to hear, as I think many viewers and listeners do. So tell us about taking the leap. Okay. So again, to put this in context, this goes back. And by the way, I feel like this conversation can go on all night, but I'm just being respectful of time, what have you. So it goes from 10 years ago where you get the opportunity to do some speaking engagements and you're like, this is kind of cool. Okay. And then you slowly ratchet that up over about 7 years, 6 or 7 years. And then COVID happens. You accelerate that because you're able to do everything digitally, remotely, this new era of connection. So when did it go from, okay, I'm doing more of this because I do kind of have the time and availability to do more of this, but when are you like, it's time to make the move? Share with us how that came to be. First and foremost, share before we get into, because I definitely want to hear about like the financial considerations, because this all has to play into it, and also your the practice sale and that process. Heck, maybe that's a topic for another episode. As a matter of fact, we
Yeah, I don't get paid for that. Am I getting paid tonight? Like I plan to get paid. I don't get paid to be on here. I mean, that's why no, I'm kidding.
You get paid in these. You get paid in these, and then
Oh,
you put
I'm
it out.
out there. No, okay.
And then you put it out in the universe. It's going to come full circle. So let's start with the personal decision when you were like, you know what, I'm going for this. What triggered that?
I think it was when my kids went back to school and started to become really busy. You know, when my kids were in preschool and first grade when COVID hit. So, you know, they were little, not really busy. And then, you know, after we got through the panic of, oh my gosh, am I going to have to be a first grade teacher? And then a kindergarten and second grade teacher. Oh my gosh. Like once that panic subsided and they were happy and back in school, it was when we could start going back into school and they would say, you know, can you, you know, I mean, obviously I couldn't go back for months because we couldn't go into school, but you know, it's a Halloween celebration at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday. Can you come? I'm like, I'm booked out like 6 weeks, you know, I can't. And then it's, you know, this activity and that activity and everything was happening during the day and sports. And then they, you know, the sports were picking back up. And I felt this real pull that that's where I was supposed to be. And I, you know, my mom was a teacher and she didn't miss anything in or after school. And that's so important to me. And I thought, man, you know, it's really hard to move patients around every time, you know, there's a Halloween parade or a walkathon or a swim meet. And my patients were super supportive and super loyal, but I also felt like it's super disruptive for me. Then throw on, you know, can you come to this meeting and speak? Can you fly out here? So, oh my gosh, you know, I felt like I was being pulled in a lot of directions and every place I wanted to be. There was nowhere that I said, oh, like I don't want to do that. I felt like I needed to clone myself because I wanted to be everywhere. And I wanted to be at this swim meet, but I wanted to be at this conference and I wanted to be seeing my patients. And I think I you know, thankfully, you know, my husband is super supportive of all my crazy, you know, we joke, I'm the visionary. I'm the like, go out for a walk and I come back and I'm like, I have the best idea.
It's called paddle platform ball.
Yeah, it's called like whatever crazy athletic or entrepreneur, you know, I come back and I'm like, you're not going to believe this. He's like, okay. Oh boy, what business does she want to start? What idea?
Sure.
I mean, I have a vision board right here that
I can only imagine.
Is like, you know, absolutely crazy. But it thankfully he's super supportive of me saying, you know, I feel like I'm at the right place in the career. My practice was in the right place for a transition. It was, you know, really a good place. I had, you know, 2 associates. Well, one had left and she actually wanted to come back. So it was seamless that I could leave and she could take my spot. So I felt my patients were well taken care of. And it was just the right time for me to transition out. My staff did not agree and were really sad. And I still talk to them, you know, every day or, you know, every couple of days. So, you know, I think the hardest part was telling people I was leaving. Once I made the decision, you know, I think none of the decision to leave for me was pretty clear. And, you know, once I came to it in my mind, I said that, no, I want to be with my kids and have this new opportunity to have more flexibility. So it was kind of a done deal in my mind, but telling everybody was the hardest part.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay. So let's, wow. So let's bring it to now. Okay. So let's bring it to now. What are you up to? Exactly what are you involved in?
Depends on the day. So let's see, today is this. I did some Cooper Vision work. What was yesterday? Yeah, it depends on the day. So I am thankful to have a lot of great companies who have offered me great partnerships and roles to do some awesome things. I started my own company called OD Perspectives, which is my consulting and advisory company that all encompasses this. So it was fun to create because I said I was doing all these 50, my kids say I have 50 jobs, but I had nowhere to collect everything under one roof or umbrella. So my company OD Perspectives is like the collector of all of my visionary ideas. So I'm teaching. I teach at NECO. I teach a course to students on sports vision. I am the new professional editor of Independent Strong, which I'm super, super excited about, which was a real honor for me to be asked to lead this publication, which is dedicated to the success of independence, which I've spent my whole career. I graduated and my first job was in private practice. So I am kind of a rarity that when I graduated, I cobbled together every private practice job I could find. And I knew that I want to be in private practice. I want to own a practice. I want to manage a practice. I want to run a practice. I'm not going to get there today, but I'll take every job. And, that's a whole nother story. I worked like every fill-in job, I learned a lot about what I liked and what I didn't like taking all of those jobs. So that's why I tell students, you might not get your dream job out of school, and that's okay because you will learn more in those other jobs than you will ever learn in your dream job. So
boom. They call that, what do we call it? What do we call that? The school of hard knocks, right? Because we both came of age in the 90s, the school of hard knocks,
I mean, I've got some horror stories about, jobs that I was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible, but I'm only here for one day and it's fine. But so, seeing private practice my whole career, I was inspired by a private practice doctor. So I knew very strongly, and that's what I wrote about as my first editorial for Independent Strong, is my love, my passion of independent eye care. And to be able now to kind of develop a platform to support independence is really fun. And to be able to call, again, not to do it on my own, but to call on other people in the industry to contribute and give a voice to all of the people who are actively supporting independent practice and helping it grow. So I'm super proud of that role. I'm a contributor and I've been a GPN I Thrive contributor forever. And you have a new article on there too. Yay.
Thank you. We got another one coming up here in a few weeks. And thank you again. You mentioned something earlier about connection. I want everyone to know Dr. Jen Stewart is truly all about connection. So yeah, again, thank you for that opportunity.
Yes. I mean, that's why, Kayla's on here or was on here, I've connected her with people and then she's connected me and we've done a, webinar together. And so GPN, I've been a huge fan, and I Thrive. I've been a writer for years, and now I just actually have a 5-part webinar series that started Tuesday, building an authentic practice. So talking about a lot of the things we talked about here. What are we struggling with in our practices? How did we lose our way? How do we find our way back? But how do we use people that can help us do that and support us and really think about what made us, why did we become optometrists? Why did we start a business? Why did we buy a business? Are we aligned with that right now? If not, how do we get back to that? So super awesome 5-part webinar series. It's much harder to be on your side and to be the host and the interviewer than it is to be the interviewee, which I realized on Tuesday.
You did awesome. You did. As a matter of fact, I will say, highly recommend tuning in. This past Tuesday, Adam Schmale is on. We have Nathan Hayes coming up. Dave Friedfeld's going to be on. Jay Binkowitz. Who am I missing?
Amy Alvarez from iDoc. So
yes, right.
There's 4 more. So it's at 7:30, but it's hard to be the host. So it's hard to. I give you a lot of credit. It's harder than it looks. I speak for Cooper Vision. They've been awesome to me for years and years. I've been on the speaker panel. They've let me kind of figure out how to present virtually and get better at it. So, and now I get to train people how to do it. So they've been really great at helping me with that. I'm a speaker for MacuHealth. So I've been a huge MacuHealth fan forever. And then what else do I do? Oh, I'm a consultant for Xyloware as well on their sports eyewear side. So I help them develop and help with initiatives to get people to understand the importance of kids and adults wearing protective eyewear. So I'm having a lot of fun doing that, along with being part of the International Sports Vision Association, kind of marrying the two. So a lot of cool things.
Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. So I can't think of a more fitting way to close out our conversation than to go back to something you mentioned earlier in our conversation. And you mentioned, and how do I know? Because I took notes and I circled it.
Yeah.
Dr. Jen Stewart, where do you see yourself 1 year from now, 5 years from now, and 10 years from now?
So 1 year, hopefully doing more of this. I was just talking to somebody about that before. I was like, what do I want to do next? I don't know. I love speaking, and while I love virtual, I think there's nothing better than live. So I'm excited, about 2023 and hopefully getting out there. Last year when I spoke at the IDOC meeting, my lecture got moved to the ballroom. So I was on the big stage, and they didn't want to tell me because they're like, you're not in the room, you're on the stage. And I was like, wait, can I go look at it? And before my presentation, I looked and like all the chairs were out, and I went on the stage. I was like, this is it. Like, this is magic. So, I can't wait to go to more meetings. I can't wait to get in front of more people. I've developed some really cool lectures. My favorite things to talk about are delivering a great patient experience, really going above and beyond. I'm a huge Disney fan. I have my
Your certification and a certification, right?
Yes,
Recently.
I took a Disney Institute course. So I love combining Disney, kind of the way that they think about the guest experience and how to translate that into our patients. Because I think
Yes.
that's what private practice really, really can do well. And we have the time and we have the ability to really wow patients every time they're in the office, every step of the way. So I hope to get out there in the next year, and talk more about that. I hope in the next 5 years, I will have a child who's almost driving, so that's terrifying. I hope to just be able, I was saying to somebody yesterday, my favorite job right now is mom taxi. So I just love being able, I hope over the next 5 years that I don't miss one sporting event. That's my goal, is that I don't miss one event. I love that. And that's really, in the next 5 years, what I want. And in 10 years, whew, to dominate all of it. No, I'm kidding. So, I think, just really continuing to push private practice and independent practice, and to really see what I can do to inspire people to take that next step, to know that they can do it. I love working with students. I think, being able to work with students and new grads to say, you can do this. There's nothing that says you can't do this. And to empower them to be excited about the career they've chosen. It saddens me when I read some of these posts that people are 2 or 3 years out and they're disheartened and sad about optometry. And I'm like, no, you are in the best profession in the world. Just, you're not in the right situation. You're not surrounding yourself with the right people. You've got to get, and I told you, I don't like the word network. I feel like networking just, it sounds like, like speed dating and handing out business cards. But like, as Perry said, it's going to meetings and connecting, so I want people to just be inspired to connect, and just to authentically and genuinely go to meetings, to meet people and talk and sit down at a table and put their phones away. And just the ideas that come from that, and the inspiration and the passion of the career we chose. That's what I hope in the next 10 years, that I can have a platform to do that more and more, louder, inspire and touch more people, to say, you've chosen the best profession there is. And there's so many cool things you can do with it. So let's do it together.
Amazing. This has been absolutely remarkable. I feel like we could probably talk like another hour, but I think what we need to do is we should definitely do this again, right?
Yeah,
definitely do this again. I captured some notes on some really cool things that you touched on that I think would be really valuable to not only our industry and practice owners and this next generation of practice owners, whether that be through cold start or purchasing a practice. You shared some really great things. We'd love to have you back on Access. So to wrap this up, how can folks get in touch with you if they want to continue the conversation?
I think most of the people on here that I see are in touch though. So LinkedIn, I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm always there. Instagram, I'm on Instagram, and then OD Perspectives is my website, my blog, my umbrella of all the work. Hopefully some meetings. I'll be at a bunch of meetings in the fall and the spring so far. I'll definitely be at Vision Expo East. It's my backyard. So again, find me at a meeting, come up, say hi, and let's connect and let's start talking. That's how it all happens.
Absolutely. Dr. Jen Stewart, thank you so much for joining us on Access. Hey, we hope everyone enjoyed that. If you're looking for more really cool conversations, follow our YouTube channel. Be sure to visit Akrinos.com frequently and follow us on the socials. You can find Akrinos across all your favorite social media channels, including Pinterest. So thanks everybody for joining.
Good night.